I was halfway to the podium when a chair scraped behind me, sharp enough to tear the moment apart. At my own graduation ceremony, my sister stood up and pointed Claire's throat at me as if she were delivering a sentence. She cheated her way through college. No whisper, no hesitation, just a clean public execution. The entire auditorium stared. My brother wasn't part of this narrative, only Ariana, my sister performing for an audience. My parents froze. I kept walking, holding together 4 years of work with nothing but breath and spine. Before I tell you what happened after I reached that stage, tell me, where are you listening from? And if you were me, what would you have done? I didn't grow up expecting my sister to turn into my enemy. If anything, most of my childhood was spent chasing whatever light Ariana carried around with her. She was the golden one, louder, brighter, effortlessly magnetic. At family dinners in Portland, relatives leaned toward her stories. I sat beside her, nodding, learning how to shrink myself so she could shine. But something shifted when I stopped. Being the quiet kid trailing behind her and started becoming someone in my own right. By junior year of high school, my grades slipped past hers. Teachers called on me more. A scholarship letter arrived with my name on it, and Ariana's smile held the sweetness of fruit left out too long. College widened that distance. I left for campus with a duffel bag and a pile of psych textbooks. She stayed home after dropping out of her grad program. I didn't think it mattered. Different paths, different timing. But the first crack showed when my scholarship refund arrived short an amount missing. Then a vague explanation from financial aid. When I asked my parents if Ariana had mentioned anything, they exchanged a look too fast to read. Then came the emails. A plagiarism report. A canceled appointment with Professor Hale I'd never canceled. A tutoring accusation from someone I'd never met. Small things at first, easy to dismiss, easy to blame on college chaos, but they stacked up. Subtle weight after subtle weight pressing on my reputation until I could feel people watching me in hallways with the caution of someone approaching a fractured mirror. Lena, my roommate, caught on before I said a word. "You're checking your phone like you're waiting for something bad," she whispered one night in our studio. I didn't know how to explain that I wasn't waiting for bad news. I was waiting for a pattern. The truth is, I kept hoping it wasn't Ariana, that my sister, the girl who braided my hair before school, couldn't possibly be the one behind this. But hope blinds you right before the final blow. I just never imagined that blow would land on the one day she knew I couldn't defend myself. The months leading up to graduation felt like living in a room where someone kept dimming the lights, not enough to throw me into darkness, just enough to make me question what I was seeing. Every time I thought the worst was over, something else slipped under the door. It began with a second adjustment to my scholarship payments. Then a notice about a missing form I'd already submitted. Then my campus account locked me out for repeated suspicious activity. I stared at the login screen in my dorm, pulse climbing, as if the system itself were telling me I no longer belonged. Professor Hale called me in next. A complaint came through, he said gently, hands folded. "Someone claims you plagiarized parts of your behavioral analysis report." My stomach dropped. That report had taken me weeks, late nights, cold leftovers, endless edits. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but he lifted a hand. "I don't believe it. I'm telling you so you can prepare." Prepare for what? A war I didn't start. Whispers followed me out of his office. Evan, a classmate from freshman year, watched me with a strange measuring look in the hallway. A girl from my lab group avoided my eyes. Even Lena, who trusted me on instinct, said, "You don't think someone's targeting you, right?" "I don't know," I said. But I did know, I just didn't want to speak it. The turning point came the night I found an email in my inbox apparently sent by me canceling a meeting I desperately needed for my capstone review. The tone wasn't mine. The phrasing wasn't mine. The signature wasn't mine, but the consequences were absolutely mine. I sat on my bed in the half light of our studio apartment, scrolling back through old memories of Ariana as if rewinding a film. The backhanded compliments, the sharp smiles, the moment she brushed off my achievements as luck, the way she drifted after leaving her grad program, always comparing, always keeping score. And somewhere between those memories, the truth formed quiet, sharp, undeniable. This wasn't random. This wasn't bad luck. Someone was engineering my collapse piece by piece. I drove home that weekend and found my dad in the backyard near the old fence he still hadn't fixed. He watered the hydrangeas like the world wasn't closing in on me. Dad, has Ariana ever said something about me about school? He paused, water dripping onto his shoes. She's been tense, he admitted. Said you get everything handed to you. I told her that wasn't fair, but the rest didn't matter. The fracture was already there. When I returned to campus, I made my choice. No more guessing. No more hoping I was wrong. I contacted a tech investigator named Noah Vance, the one a friend of a friend swore could find ghosts in any machine. And within days, those ghosts had names, timestamps, locations, and one of them was Ariana's. That was the moment the quiet dread inside me hardened into resolve. Noah didn't talk much. During our first meeting, he simply listened while I laid out every strange payment, every canceled appointment, every whisper clinging to me like smoke. When I finished, he tapped the side of his laptop. If someone's been inside your accounts, they left footprints. People always do. 3 days later, he called me back to a shared workspace downtown. The place buzzed with quiet conversations and the hum of old vents, but Noah's screen was razor clear. These are your login logs, he said, pointing. Except here, here, and here. Those aren't yours. The access came from another device on a home network in Portland. My chest tightened. I didn't want to hear it. He said it anyway. The same network where your parents live. Something inside me folded inward like my ribs were trying to protect my heart. He wasn't accusing them, not directly. But only one person in that house had ever memorized my passwords, my security questions, my habits. Ariana. Noah kept scrolling. There's more. The missing scholarship payments, someone rerouted them twice. Then he opened a window showing a list of transactions filed under my campus account. And these tutoring accusations, they were sent from a mirrored email one character off from yours. That's intentional. My throat dried. Intentional. The word felt surgical. I left the workspace trembling, my phone buzzing. Lena texted, "You okay? You've been quiet." I couldn't answer. Not yet. I needed air, something steady. Instead, I drove to my parents' house, parked in the driveway, and stared at the porch light flickering beneath the early summer sky. Dad found me 20 minutes later. "Jolie, what's going on?" I didn't tell him everything, just enough. That missing scholarship money, the plagiarism complaint someone's been in my accounts, pulling strings. He swallowed hard. "Are you saying—" "I don't know what I'm saying," I lied. "Not until I have proof, because the truth would break him." He still thought Ariana was complicated, not cruel wounded, not dangerous. He couldn't see what she'd been doing to me because I'd spent years hiding it beneath a smile. But I wasn't hiding anymore. Back on campus that night, I gathered every file, every screenshot, every odd detail Noah had confirmed. If Ariana wanted to dismantle the life I built, then I would protect it with everything I had left. The next morning, I contacted attorney Morarius. She went through everything and asked only one question. "When do you want this to stop?" "When it's no longer just me she can hurt," I said. That's when the shift happened, quiet but absolute. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. Graduation was 2 weeks away. I sealed the evidence into an envelope, labeled and ready. And for the first time in months, fear loosened its hold. I felt direction. Those 2 weeks passed like I was living in two overlapping timelines. In one, I was a normal graduating senior, returning my dorm key, finishing finals, trying on my cap and gown. In the other, I was preparing for a silent war. A war Ariana didn't know she'd already lost. The night before graduation, sleep barely touched me. The sky outside my studio was a deep, cloudless blue, one of those skies that makes the world feel suspended. I laid out everything: the sealed envelope, the verified logs Noah collected, the statement Mara helped me write, and my capstone summary. My hands didn't shake, not anymore. They held the steadiness of someone finally stepping out of survival mode. At sunrise, I slipped the envelope into the inner lining of my gown and walked out the door. The university auditorium in Portland was already buzzing when I arrived. Students hugged each other. Parents fanned themselves with their programs, and the faculty formed a polished line in full regalia. Everything appeared festive, orderly, and full of hope. Yet beneath all that brightness, a slow pulse of dread thudded in my chest. It wasn't fear of Ariana herself, it was fear of what she might force me to reveal. The moment my family walked in, I noticed it instantly. Ariana wasn't dressed like a guest at a graduation. She looked like she intended to run the ceremony. White blazer, heavy dramatic makeup, posture too carefully arranged. Her eyes scanned the room, sharp and hungry, searching for attention she hadn't earned. Mom waved at me with too much enthusiasm. Dad's hug lingered as if he sensed something was looming. Ariana stood behind them with her arms crossed. "Congrats," she said smoothly. "Big day." "Yeah," I answered, keeping my tone steady. "Huge." Her smile twitched, quick, sharp, almost predatory, and in that flash I saw exactly what she planned to do. She wasn't there to celebrate. She was there to strike. I took my place on stage with the honor students. From that height, the crowd moved like a single breathing creature. The lights warmed my face, and a strange calm settled into my bones. Dean Matthews caught my eye from his seat. We'd spoken the night before, he already knew everything, and he gave me the smallest nod. Then the ceremony began. Speeches rose and fell. Applause swelled. Music carried the room forward. My name fell alphabetically near the end, which gave Ariana a wide-open stretch of time to decide how she would wreck the day, and she used it. I heard the sound first, her chair scraping violently backward, followed by her voice cutting through the room. She cheated her way through college. The words tore through the auditorium like ripping fabric. Conversations froze. Faculty halted mid-motion. Phones lifted instantly, their glowing screens capturing the spectacle she craved. "She doesn't deserve that diploma." She shouted again, louder, pointing straight at me. She lied. She manipulated the system. Ask anyone. Dozens of faces swung toward me, their expressions shifting from joy to shock, to something deeper and more complicated. Concern, confusion, curiosity, a whole sea of eyes, silently asking the same question: is it true? I rose. Every step down the aisle felt intentional and measured. The click of my heels became its own countdown. I didn't look at Ariana not out of fear of what she'd say next, but because I already knew what she was about to lose. Students shifted aside to let me pass. Some whispered. Some stared boldly. Others looked away as if my humiliation might somehow spread to them. But humiliation was no longer what lived inside me. What lived there now was purpose. The dean stood at the podium, calm, hands resting lightly on the stack of diplomas. The room still buzzed with Ariana's accusations, but his voice remained steady. "Jolie Hart," he announced. I accepted my diploma, raised my chin, and leaned in just enough. "It's under my seat," I whispered. Envelope marked a 19. He didn't startle or question me. He simply offered a small, knowing smile and nodded, and that nod was the quiet beginning of the end. Behind us, security moved into position. A faculty member approached the row where Ariana still stood, chest heaving and makeup cracking under the heat of her own performance. She didn't understand that the moment the dean nodded, the room no longer belonged to her, not with the evidence waiting beneath my chair. As I stepped off stage, the atmosphere shifted. The whispers changed shape. A woman in the second row lowered her phone, frowning not at me, but at Ariana. A professor shook his head. A local reporter leaned forward to take notes. Ariana felt the shift too. What? She snapped, her voice wobbling. You all saw it. She didn't deny anything. She didn't grasp that silence is not always confession. Sometimes silence is strategy. Security reached her row. One guard spoke quietly, giving her a choice: step out voluntarily or be escorted. But Ariana never did quiet. You're all blind. She screamed, pointing again as desperation cracked through her polished exterior. She's been blind for years, but the room was no longer with her. They had seen me walk with calm. They had seen the dean nod. They had seen Ariana unravel, and unravel she did. Her voice fractured first, then her hands, then the control she'd always believed she held over me, over our family, over the whole narrative. She kept trying to shout, but security gently guided her toward the aisle. It wasn't rough. It wasn't hostile. It was simply the natural result of her own choices. At the auditorium doors, she turned for one last attempt, fury burning through her disbelief. You think this is over, Jolie? She hissed. You think that little whisper makes you innocent? I didn't turn. I didn't need to. The truth was already in motion, quiet, legal, unavoidable. After the ceremony, I met the dean backstage. He held the envelope I'd hidden. This is serious, he said softly. So is what she did, I answered. He nodded, unwavering. You did the right thing. Moments later, me arrived sharp, composed. She flipped through the contents with practiced efficiency. Log statements, summaries, screenshots, transaction trails, every piece pointing in one unmistakable direction. She won't be able to twist this, me said. Not with the academic board, not in civil court, not anywhere. And just like that, the final phase of Ariana's entire scheme collapsed. Not because I yelled, not because I fought her in front of the crowd, but because I refused to fight on the battlefield she chose. The investigation opened the next morning. By the end of the week, Ariana was banned from campus pending review. 2 professors came forward with old suspicious emails they had dismissed. The scholarship office traced rerouted payments straight to accounts linked to her device. And once Noah submitted his digital report, the board needed only one meeting. Ariana's sabotage became undeniable. Her meltdown at graduation, the performance meant to ruin me, became the clearest evidence of motive, obsession, and malicious intent. When the storm finally settled, something unexpected rose inside me, not triumph, but freedom. In the weeks that followed, the investigation moved faster than I imagined. The board issued its findings. Ariana had accessed my accounts, rerouted scholarship payments, forged emails, and tried to sabotage my standing. She was officially banned and referred to civil court. When me filed the restitution claim, the evidence was so airtight the negotiations barely stretched past an hour. My parents struggled with it. First shock, then denial, then a quiet surrender when the paperwork left nothing to reinterpret. Dad called one night, his voice heavy. I should have seen it, he whispered. I didn't blame him. Ariana always knew how to hide in the soft spaces where love turns into assumption. I moved to a small apartment in Corvallis soon after. It wasn't luxurious, but sunlight poured through the windows every morning. I bought a second-hand table, adopted a cat who immediately claimed every chair, and let my life become simple again. For the first time in years, my days weren't shaped by fear or doubt. I studied, I walked, I breathed, and slowly, the space Ariana once filled with chaos softened into something gentler room to rebuild myself on my own terms. If I learned anything, it's that telling the truth isn't about winning. It's about stepping out of the shadows someone else built for you. Ariana's choices created my pain, but they don't dictate my future. I shaped that myself, piece by piece, with evidence, patience, and a refusal to shrink anymore. If you've ever had to stand up to someone who should have protected you, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments, I read them. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe so you won't miss the next one.